Welcome again. Thanks for your time. We're here to talk about A/B testing, which is can be a very simple thing to do. It can also be a very complex thing to do, and it can be a time-consuming thing to do based on how you structure it. So my goal today is to really provide you some ideas for ways you can test things inside the Omnisend application, outside the Omnisend application. If you're not an Omnisend customer, if you're not, shame on you. But this will be applicable to anyone across any organization who's looking into it. Myself, I'm your host today. I'm also the presenter. So my name is Greg Zakowicz, a fan favorite here at Omnisend, internally, of course. That's here. But I've been in email marketing, believe it or not, across multiple capacities, from practitioner to consultant to analyst to kind of whatever you want to do. And now I'm in this combination role for close to 20 years now, which is crazy to think about. I've been doing SMS marketing for brands across those same roles for 11 years, going on 12. And there's my contact information. If you want to find me on social, send me some questions, whatever you want to do there. So enough about me. So things to know for the agenda today. We're going to do approximately 1 hour, sometime maybe possibly less, but I am long-winded when I talk. So chances are a little bit more. The workshop is being recorded. So I know we always get those questions. If you need to drop off the call early or we're running late and you're scared you're going to miss something, we will record this. We'll send it to you via email. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. So if you missed that, check out Omnisend's YouTube channel. But we'll record it. So if you drop off, don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're going to miss anything. We'll catch you up there. If you have any questions, of course, we'll see if we can get the chat working for you here, but there is that Q&A tab, which everyone is letting me know that the chat's not working. So you know how to use the Q&A tab here. So use that, throw your questions in. If there's any questions we cannot get to during the course of the presentation, we will try to follow up with you afterward as well. So we'll do our best to address whatever we can for you. And then, of course, after the event, there's a quick feedback form, super quick, might take you 15 seconds or so, but please complete it if you can. It really helps us make these programs even better. So anything from topics to different presenters to whatever you want, please use that for us. And we would certainly appreciate it. The agenda for today's program, pretty simple. We're going to talk about A/B testing with a couple different things. We'll talk about forms. So your collection, email and SMS sign-up forms. We'll talk about email testing ideas, and those will be more your campaigns, but also how they apply to automations. And we'll talk specifically about automation testing and really how email and automation kind of merge and get those two things. And of course, that short feedback, I'm going to keep hitting you with that today. And that will have some time, hopefully, for some questions and a little debate there for you as well. So that'll be our agenda today. And I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into it. Quick reminder for those with Omnisend, maybe those who are not at Omnisend. However, just to let you know that we are here to support you. One of those ways we support you is actually through support. So just a reminder, we do have 24/7, 365 live support. Of course, we're recording this about a week before Black Friday, Cyber Monday week rolls around. So of course, we have our knowledge base, online knowledge base, which is available for you. We have all the resources you could use, but I know things come up, especially during those crazy days. So if you need live support, please utilize our live chat function. We've got live humans staffing that 24 hours a day. So please let us help you when you need help as well. Of course, we have holiday email templates. If you haven't poked around the Omnisend application for a while, we have all sorts of different forms you could do. We have preset segmentation, preset automation as well. So we'll actually go through some of that automation. You'll see it if you haven't yet, and how we create some of the shells for you, and then you can customize. We also have 2 resources, which are free. They're not gated. You can just even just Google them, and you'll find resources to them. But they will be applicable to what we're talking about today. So that's a subject line tester and a AI subject line generator. So I know writing subject lines, sometimes we get caught in in that same mindset where it's hard to kind of break out of the box, and you keep coming up with different variations of subject lines. So the subject line generator will kind of be your go-to here. You can type a couple of keywords in there for what that email is about, and we'll propose some sample subject lines for you. So it's kind of a good way to break away from the monotony a little bit. And a subject line tester, if you want to run through some of your Black Friday or Cyber Monday subject lines through there and just kind of get some ideas for improvements here. Those are available. Those are the links here, but you can also just Google Omnisend subject line tester or Omnisend subject line generator, and you'll be taken to those. So let's start here real quick. It gets a little interaction. Which test won? Here is an email A/B split test, which test won? And let me throw up a poll here, and we'll see if we can get some responses. So let's launch this poll here for you. All right, so we're at 60-40, 59, 59-41. So 60-40, we're ending it. So let's end this 60%. I think version B won. And let's go ahead and share those real quick. 40% thought version A won. And this would be the fun part where I say, hey, what is the reason for version A or B winning? So somewhat of a fun question, but also somewhat of a trick question here. So here's the thing. We got to understand what we're testing for. What is the goal of the test? It depends on what we are looking for. Obviously, we're not probably not doing subject line testing here because we have two different very image creatives here. But are we looking for engagement? Are we looking for sales? Are we looking for average order value? There's a lot of different things that go into determining which one won. By the way, if I would have guessed from my own standpoint, I would have said version B. And the reason my gut would tell me it's more simplistic. It focuses people where to click and you can go there. But we also don't know if this was segmented going to certain people. So there's a lot of variables in there. This is really the kind of telltale thing for testing is we need to know what we're testing for. So are we testing for clicks? Are we testing for conversions? When we're doing subject line testing, are we looking for open rate with subject line testing? Are we actually looking for conversions with the subject line? It's great to get a 100% open rate, but if no one clicks and buys, what's the value of that 100% open rate? So this is the one thing we always need to think through what we're trying to test. So when we look at version B here, we saw that for the most part, version B was indeed the winner on most things. So if we were doing it based on click rate, version B got a increase in click rate, 100% increase. Conversion rate also significantly higher, almost 38%. Revenue drove more revenue than the first one, but the average order value of version A, so the one with recommendations, was was higher than version B there. And if we look at the confidence rate of these, confidence rate for clicks, 95%, so pretty good. And orders, just based on sample size, not very significant. So now, this is the one thing when we talk about significance of tests. Sometimes it's effective for you. Sometimes you can kind of use gut analytics, if you will. You know your brand better, you know your performance better, and this is really what matters. So when we do any sort of testing, whether it's a form, automation, or anything like that, the thing we're looking for is we need to have a goal in mind. We talked about in sales engagement and things like that. So how do we figure out confidence? Well, there's a lot of different ways. I love stats. I love spreadsheets. I'm not a statistical nerd like others are, though. But that's okay because there's tons of tools out there for you. So the one I used to determine significance there is abtestguide.com. There's a link to the resource there. You can just kind of Google A/B testing significance calculators, and there's a bunch of Neil Patel has one and things like that. So, so here's the thing. If you need some help and you want to figure out that statistical confidence level, just use one of these tools, plug in your numbers there, figure out, whether it's significant or not. But in this case, right, it says, let me go back one screen here. We have orders, right? So your revenue is not significant based on the numbers that went out. But I would tell you and go, okay, well, my revenue is up 18%. I consider that a win, right? Might not be significant, but it's good enough to say, hey, 18% lift in revenue. While I might have gotten the right buyer on one side, it's enough to tell me, hey, let's test this again somewhere else and see if we get very similar results. So it might not be significant, but I would still say good enough for you. So here, again, it's just a tool for you to use to kind of go along with the testing. So that being said, let's talk about some testing ideas here. And we're going to start with forms, which is kind of work our way through. So of course, we want to collect email addresses, collect SMS, mobile numbers, and then we're going to start setting up messages, and then we're going to do some automation. So we'll just kind of walk through that process here. So with form testing, like emails, there are tons of different things you can do. There's no right or wrong for which one you decide. You know your brand best. You know how your audience engages, maybe even the demographics for your audience here. So you might do something where it's a single step versus a multi-step form, or a single step versus a multi-step teaser. So only one you left. It's pretty basic form like you might see. Give us your email address. Here's a discount or join our list. The one to the right, hey, you want a discount there? And when you click yes, you then transport over to that collection. All right, but you could do a test like that. It might just look something very similar, but again, there's tons of different ways you can do. It could be an email versus an email and SMS. So do we capture more emails? Our conversion rate with email is better if we have multiple options, because maybe email becomes a default. It's like, hey, I don't want to give you both, but I'll give you the email versus the other one being like, nope, I'm not ready for that yet. So you could do this, and you can also test different ways to collect SMS, kind of using those combined things. We can do things like standard forms versus gamification forms as well. So you can try to gamify things. In this case, it's a Wheel of Fortune form, but you can see if that engagement or that game helps drive conversion rates a little bit more. A lot of data we see says that yes, but Wheel of Fortunes are becoming pretty popular for a lot of brands right now. So maybe the wax and wanes on the interest level, but we do generally see that Wheel of Fortunes do convert pretty well for you on top of other ones. So there's tons of different ways you could test. These are just a couple of different examples of them. But here are some ideas, right? We could do text or verbiage if you think about it. So we can change our verbiage, change our sense of urgency, whatever we want to do. We can do text versus visuals. We can do visuals, different images compared to one another. We can do single step forms versus multi-step. We can do email versus email, SMS. You can test incentives, and this is always a really interesting one. There's a couple different steps to this because you have to change your welcome automation. Potentially, if you have a welcome email with that discount in there. Otherwise, if it's just the confirmation page form on the pop-up itself that displays the form, that's one way to do it. But I used to have a client when I was doing consulting that tested. They were just, hey, we're not sure what's going to get the most signups and then get the most conversions afterward. And they did a split test, and they did 10% off, 15% off, 20 and 25% off for signing up. And believe it or not, 25% converted, and it was statistically significant. They had a huge traffic to the website. 25% converted less. And I think 15 might have won out at the end of the day, but 25 and 20 convert a little bit less than 15%. They're like, all right, we're saving ourselves 10% on this. And they were able to do that. So these are things that might change over time, but it's always good to kind of test that if you have the ability to do so. Then, of course, things like extra data. So it could be your first name, it could be a birthday, it could be really anything at all. And I'll talk about data here in just a second, and whether we want to collect that or not, in the use case for that. So tons of different ideas for ways you want to test to get, again, the ultimate goal in mind and what you're hoping to achieve from it. So, we talk about form testing and the data point. So here's my one caveat. If you are collecting additional pieces of information on the form, I would certainly ask yourself, what am I doing with this information now? Because the user is being presented with giving that information now. It's not something you collect later, right? Purchase history or mobile number, things like this. So if you are collecting email address, right, the common thing is to send a welcome message. We're using the information now. Same with SMS. If they give you their mobile number, send them a welcome SMS as well. It's pretty straightforward. However, if they're giving you something like gender or their birth date, if you don't have a birthday automation in place or are planning on launching that very shortly, then that's one of those things where, you're going to want to maybe not ask for it until you're closer to launch, because you're setting poor expectations. Location, gender, kind of the same thing, right? So gender, I would say, okay, if we're collecting that right away, is our welcome series reflecting that information? Are we putting it to practical application right away? So the welcome series might have more recommendations or more hero images leading toward, if I'm mark myself as a male, maybe it's more male-dominated products with female products as the secondary or tertiary call to actions or recommendations, and vice versa. So are we using that information right away? Because if not, you're collecting information to collect information, but you're also setting a poor experience with it as well, poor expectations. So that's the one thing with data. You're okay collecting it, but please be mindful about how you're using that data immediately. We create a form like we always do it. Again, edit. You can edit the name of the form. So you can. I'm just going to throw Greg in here so I can go back and delete it later. Okay, so again, we got our form. You guys know how to use the form here. If you see something you want to collect, you can click, drag it over, drop it kind of where you want to drop it here. But over here, we have this A/B test option on the right-hand side here, where we can set up our A/B test. So if you want to test different versions here, you click A/B test, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a copy of that single form we just had and splice it into two. So we have, this is the form it's based on, which will be our main form, and then we have copy one, copy two. And then we can either click on the name of it or click the pencil icon here to edit the actual version. So if I click on copy one, you'll see the name up here, copy one of Halloween collections, Greg. I can edit this name if I am testing it. So we'll do A/B test, and this will be our email only. We'll update that. And this is just where we're going to collect our email, and then we'll click our success page here, and we'll just edit like we would normally edit here. And then I have my A/B test settings up here. So, or I can click this icon right here and go to the other version. Either way gets you to the same place and you're good to go. So here I'm going to go to copy two, and it's going to say, yeah, I want to save the changes. I'm notoriously bad at this. And now I have copy two, and I'm just going to give this email plus SMS. So now you can see here, I've got two different versions, version A and version B of my original one, but I can also then look to see in the naming convention which one is collecting which piece of information. This one, I'm gonna do SMS, so we can just collect on what I want to do here. And I'll say, okay, let's do a phone number as well. We'll set our country here, but you can see we have these options for phone number, and then you can adjust it however you want to adjust it here, and you're good to go. So you can choose whether you want these to be mandatory fields, optional fields, whatever you want. I always recommend making your SMS collection an optional field, so it's always there. Good, and we'll just do optional here. And then you're all set. And once you're ready, you can, save and close. You can go back, but we'll go to our A/B settings. And now we have two different versions we're going to do. So we've got version A, version B. We want it to kind of launch up, and you can see the split here. So, there might be instances where you want to split 70-30. You think one's really going to work more than the other, going to let it run for a while, but you want that to kind of be your primary one. So you can always do, 30 here, and you could see it automatically adjust on the other side. So in this case, we'll just do 50-50. We're good to go. We've got this, and then you can start the A/B test whenever you're ready to start. And what that's going to do is going to take the form, and obviously it'll split that audience 50-50, come to your website, and you are good to go, and you start running your test. So you can see we had on this one, I'm going to disable this because we'll probably have some people going to this right now. But once you enable one of the test forms here, it'll be showing up in your reports. And what you see on the reports is, it'll kind of break it down. I think this one is busted out already, but you can see when you're looking at the individual reports, it'll show you your two different ones. It'll compare one versus the other. And when you go back to it, you can then end that. You can end that at any particular point in time you want. There'll be an option to kind of choose the winner. So you just choose winner, you select which one is performing better based on, again, the goals that you're hoping to achieve, open rates, conversion rates, whatever it might be. And then you'll have a report that kind of breaks these two down. This one's outdated. This was a test one, so you can see there. But it's pretty simplistic with how to do. Again, you're going to create two different versions. Just make sure, like me, if you've got a real website, unlike my fake website here, you have a privacy policy to put in there for TCPA compliance. If you're collecting SMS, creating a coupon code for the success page. If you have the Wheel of Fortune, which we had before, I don't have a coupon code for you. So those are things there, but pretty straightforward with setting it up, right? You're just going to create a new form and then go to the A/B test options on the side of the screen there, and then you can start running your test there. So if we get time, I'll come back to that and we'll get it squared away, but pretty straightforward. So again, we'll look at the areas we want to test and and then run that test and option to it. So everyone's good. Let's get into email testing because I know we are anxiously awaiting here. So email testing, very similar to forms, right? So we're going to do lots of different things we can test. And again, we can do subject lines, pre-header text. I'm going to walk through a couple of those here in just a second. We could obviously do copy, verbiage, images, layouts, call to actions, could be colors, could be verbiage on the call to actions. We can test incentives. There's no law saying you can't send some people 15%, other people 20%. We saw the test earlier today, product recs versus no recommendations, or even personalization. So think about inserting loyalty numbers into emails or using first name personalization across the board. So there's a lot of different things you can test. I think some will have more value than others. And we're happy to take any questions on that, or hopefully I'll give you some of those indications as we move through. So go through and show you how to set up some of those tests in different ways to kind of just organize things simply. If you're looking for a very quick way to do some content testing, especially if you are strapped for time, which I know most people are. But subject lines and pre-headers, these are where brands normally start testing because it's simple. You don't need different creatives. You don't need different images. You just simply change subject lines or change your pre-headers and things like this. So there's tons of different ways you can do this. Personalization, set their name. I'm not going to read these all for you. This is here for a resource. However, areas with either pre-header or subject line tests where I think you're going to find a bigger bang for the buck than simply just having two random subject lines are going to be using emojis, using verbiage like a sense of urgency versus a non-urgent one, all caps versus either sentence case or lowercase, or using social proof and using social proof. So think about, and this could be combined with emojis, using 5 stars for top rated products, things like this. I think this is where you tend to get a bigger bang for the buck from an open rate, because a lot of subject line tests, to be quite frank, you might see a 0.3, 0.4% difference in open rates. A lot of times that is not significant. It's usually just luck of the draw on there. Of course, you can look at clicks. Emojis are one of those things where I'm a big fan of it, especially in the holiday season, using multiple emojis and things like this. And I've got an example here on the left-hand side. You could see from a subject line or pre-header, and this could work in either case here, where the colors break up the inbox view. It provides either taking some of that white space away, which white space can be good, but inboxes are generally black and white, and having a lot of color in a row draws your eye to it immediately. And I think it's something you'll see a lot during the holiday season if you look at your own email inbox. So I think those are places where if you're doing subject line or pre-header testing, you are going to find a bigger bang for the buck. You probably get some better results out of it. And then for content, right, you can see the example here on the right, and I'll show you how to do this, but it's simply just dragging your sections around. So you're not creating new images, you're not creating new content, you're not creating new copywriting. You're literally just changing the way the layout or the structure of the email looks to see, hey, if we presented the information earlier versus later, or we have recommendations or no recommendations, or we have these things and we can learn a little something from it as well. So some of these examples you might look at is, here's just an example I whipped together for more passive voice versus using more of a sense of urgency. The products will sell out fast, or they'll last longer, your cart's about to expire, really whatever it might be. Sense of urgency. I'm a huge fan of social proof. I'm a huge fan of sense of urgency as well. Here's an option for, again, using the same creative and just changing the text a little. Discount versus no discount. It doesn't mean you can't give them a discount if you say have a 15% off on your website, but how you promote it. And you might find that, hey, we get more clicks by just focusing on the product and not focusing on the discount as much, and vice versa. So there's simple ways to do this. And then, of course, how we actually do this inside of Omnisend based on what you want to do. Have those options. So let's shoot on over doing any sort of testing with, and we're just talking about campaigns right now. We'll get to automation here in a minute. So we're going to click on our campaigns. Of course, I created a few, but in the upper right corner, we'll see new campaign here. So we'll click on new campaign, and then we've got our options, of course, what we want to do, what type of message we want to send, SMS, email. But we have this very nifty A/B test option right here. So we'll just click create A/B test. And here is where you have your options to add a B version and go through. So let's just do Greg is somewhat amazing. I didn't, no typos, look at that. And then, of course, if you want to add emojis, we have those here. So, we could do something like this, add the emojis here. And for this instance, I'm just going to do open now. And we'll just throw a bunch of hearts there. And of course, we can create our copy here for email. If we're testing subject lines, this goes back to what are we testing, right? So if we're testing subject lines or pre-header text, we're going to want to keep the copy of the email identical, because we don't want to influence, especially if you're looking at conversions. And subject line tests, you should look at open rates, but also look at conversions. I absolutely would. So if you change multivariate testing in here, you have multiple things you're testing or changing, you don't really know which performs better, with the exception here of open rate, but I would always look at conversions. And then we have our email. So for this instance, I'm just going to make it easy and create the email here, and we'll just use this template again. And I'm going to go ahead and finish saving that. So now we're back here. I've got my email, I've got my subject line. I'm going to add a B version. You can see what it does when I add the B version. It just copies everything over, which is why I edited this one the first time. So for this instance, let's just say we're testing, pre-header text here. We're going to keep everything the same. I'm going to remove the hearts here and just have open now, and that'll be my pre-header text. But I have my image exactly the same. I have my emails, and I'm ready to go. Now, in the flip side, if you want to test and keep everything here the same and test your copy, pretty straightforward. I think you would know what you would do, but you're going to edit the content for the one you want to test. So in this case, I'll just edit B version. And just like I said, you saw in the previous example on the slide, right? I could just move this up a little bit more, but you can kind of change whatever you want to change. Let's drop this section up, drop this section up, pull this one down. So we're going to figure out what we're testing here, but it's pretty easy to test what you want to do. Of course, you can always change colors of the call to actions if you want. You can add different things, but it's a pretty simple way to do it. And then we'll just finish editing here. But now we've got our two different versions based on how we want to do. And then we have our campaign name. So always recommend, the campaign, you might want to mention what you're testing here. So pre-header test. You can see I like using caps mostly because my eyes are terrible. We'll do, emoji pre-header test here. And then I am good to go at this point. So once you're ready to go, you can click on next step. You got to choose who you're going to send it to, right? So we'll just choose this fancy segment here. We'll do next step. And then we have our options here. So here's our A/B settings. We have, right now, the way this is set up is we have 5% of the recipients will get version A, 5% will be version B. And you can see right down here, how long should we determine the winning version for? And we're going to determine by click rate or open rate. In this case, we're testing pre-header text, but again, I would always go, okay, well, who's engaging after we get the opens? Doesn't mean you won't be able to see the open rate, but this is where you're going to determine what is the purpose of our test with this email. So we'll just do click rate for now, but you can make that easier. And then you can change it whenever you want, and you can change this percentage as well. So you could just go, hey, let's do, 25% here. I'll break that and slide it, but you can also just 50 there. We got a 25. So now we can change it kind of based on however big your list size is, your segment size, or whoever you're sending it to make it somewhat statistically relevant, or at least give you those gut analytics to figure out, hey, which is doing better. And then once you're set to go, you click next step. And if you have any warnings, like, me, I love my warnings. I'm not going to send this because there's actual recipients on here for internal people, but you click next step, just follow the steps, just like sending a regular email campaign. When you're ready, click send and you're good to go. But this is where you can kind of adjust what you want to do from a send standpoint. And of course, you can always not have a winning version and just do a straight 50-50 test. And obvious answer there is you just drop the initial down to 0, and you can see it automatically sets you at 50-50 there. So testing is pretty simple when you're doing campaign tests. And again, it's simple to set up, but you can go through and figure out what you want to test, how you want to test, and from there, and you're pretty good to go from a campaign side here. So again, if you have any questions on that, throw them in the Q&A. Hopefully take those for you. And then automation testing, this is where my fun always gets in, like creating these complex workflows and things and dragging stuff around. It's kind of that creative side that I like to do here. Anything with automation testing, we're really going to stick with the same thing we did from a campaign testing. And think about, you could still test subject lines or pre-headers or content, and think about all those things you want to do, but there's some other things we can test with automation as well. And the reason I'd recommend testing with automations is simple. So if you check out our stat reports, which we're typically in, they're on a resources section, and we're always putting these things out. So we put out a H1 stats report this year, including the previous couple of years, but 47% of all automated or all email revenue or orders in the first half of this year came from automated messages, which is about 3% of sends. Pretty typical. Most brands will fall anywhere between 20 to 45%. So pretty in line. I think most brands will hit around 30-35% of their email orders coming in from automated messages. And that's because they're based on behavior, they're relevant. But within those automated sales, 87% of those email orders come from 3 automated message series, and that's welcome series, browse abandonment, and cart abandonment. And the reason is, again, not only are they relevant, but they're at very particular stages of the consumer shopping cycle. Cart, they put products in the cart and they're buying from someone. Welcome, sign up, probably signing up because they're looking to shop, maybe sign up because you offered them a discount to sign up, nothing wrong with that. And then browse abandonment, something in their life has them on your website, checking out products, but it just hasn't taken the cart. So that's why these three are so powerful. And these are places I would start looking to test. And it could be simple tests, could be timing, but things more specific to automation is exactly that. Do we send the cart abandonment message at 30 minutes or 1 hour or 6 hours or 12 hours? We can do an easy split there. How many messages do we want to send? Do we want to send one message, 3 messages, or 4 messages? Which channels do we want to use and which order of those channels we want to do? So if they're signed up for email and SMS, how does that change the potential conversion rate of these things? So we can play with those things as well. Of course, segments, you can test these things within segments if you want to get super fancy. So cart abandonment, right? Purchased more than 3 times, and we have that path going off. And then you could do a 50-50 split for just those people who are more loyal or repeat customers of yours versus people who have never shopped with you before. And these are all things you can do and get creative as you want to get as funky as you want to get, or as simplistic as you want to get. We talk about welcome and browse abandonment. Things you can test here are content of the emails. Are your welcome messages more promotional in nature or more informational in nature? And you can test those things. We talked about using gender. Does it actually make a difference during the welcome series? So these are things that we can really focus on with our automation and then combine it with all the other things we talked about from a campaign send as well. So let's look at just a couple examples. These are going to be hard to see on the screen, probably, but I did a couple screenshots here just to kind of give a visual example. So again, we can split something 50-50. And this, we're just looking at timing. Does it convert better at 3 days or 7 days? What are unsubscribe or spam rates on these things? Do they actually inflate, or are they pretty standard across the board here? Here's an example for cart total, right? And then we test based on cart total and timing, whether cart is over a certain amount, under a certain amount, and then we kind of split it. Again, you can get as funky as you want to get with these things. And then this one's going to be tough to see at the screen. It's more of a visual to see, hey, we can make these things pretty fun here and just kind of duplicate things over. And this is, we're testing channels. We're testing the order of the channels as well, right? One gets it first on the SMS side. I'll show you this actually in the application as well. So one gets the SMS first, one gets it last for those SMS subscribers. So lots of different ways to kind of have some fun with it as well. And I think if you want to test some things for the holidays, I'm not a big fan of testing during the holidays, but if you want to get a little crazy with it, more so maybe not for the year, but for holiday specific things, right? One of the optimizations I would always recommend around the holidays is to shorten your time frames for your browse abandonment, or especially your cart abandonment window. So if you normally send it 4 hours, holidays, I cut that down to 1. You have your baselines for 4 hours already, but you can always play with that. So let's take a look at getting crazy with workflows in Omnisend. I'll kind of show you some of these examples here. So with the workflows, of course, it's automation. So we're going to click the automation tab in the upper part of the screen here. And let's see. Let's create one from scratch, and then I'll pull you that funky one I talked about, just so you can kind of see how that looks here. So new workflow, upper right, and we've got a bunch of different options. Again, you've heard us talk about templates already, or we talk about templates, and we could do something here and just kind of go down. So I'm just going to start basic. You can always create a brand new workflow from scratch right here, or you can create a predefined template here for you. So we'll do a basic welcome here. Oh, I didn't want to do the SMS for a specific reason. So we'll leave it as is. So we've got our template. In this case, they're going to come in when they when they abandon a checkout, or I'm sorry, welcome. They sign up for a form. I don't even know what I'm doing here. Let's change the name of this to Greg Test Delete 11/15. My brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin. He's not watching. All right, so we've got a trigger, whatever trigger you want to do, welcome, browse, whatever that might be. Of course, they're going to leave the workflow by default when we place an order. You can always customize that as well. So in this case, we've got a 1-minute delay, and then we're going to send an email, welcome email, and then we have a delay, and we're going to send an SMS. And this is where we can really get a little bit creative with it. So what might we want to test during a welcome series? Well, the number of messages or the content of those messages. So we want one more promotional in nature, one more, informational branding in nature. So there's a couple different ways on the left side of the screen. You can, of course, drag an email over where you want. If you want to create a new email, same with an SMS message, drag it over. Now, the one thing you can also do is if you're doing a simple test like a subject line or just a timing, but you want the same message to go, you can clone any message in here you want. So you click on the little three icons, you can delete that, or you can clone it. And when you clone it, it's just going to create a duplicate of that message here. And then you can drag it kind of where you want to go. And then we've got our flow actions. Of course, we have our delays. We have tag contacts. We're not going to get into that today, but you can also tag contacts for different types of segmentation or whatever. And then we have two options here. We have a split and we have an A/B testing. And you might wind up using one over the other. You might wind up using both in a workflow, but a split is going to be exactly that. If we drop it, we've got a yes/no path, right? And then we can split it based on certain things. So, for instance, we have, if you abandon a shopping cart and you want to, split it based on the value of that cart. So is it under $50, over $50, or whatever you set there, you have the ability to do so. And that's how you're going to use a split. So in this case, let's just do trigger events, and we'll do form is, and then in this case we have, different. So did they fill out a AAA pop-up form, versus another one? So there's a bunch of different options here. So we'll delete that and delete. We want to delete the no path. Where are we at? Okay. And then for A/B testing, this will be a little more straightforward as well. So this is simply just splitting your audience like a campaign test. So you can say, okay, we'll send 50% of the people this way, 50% this way. In this case, if we're testing content of the messages, I would just want to do a 50-50 test. But of course, you can adjust these if, again, it's a small test and you just want to figure out which you want there. So if we do the split 50-50, and now we have our 50-50 split. And you can see the way I stuck this in here, I've got everything looping back, but this is where you can kind of, customize what you want to do here. So we've got these two messages and we're going to have, informational in nature. I'll drag this up here. Let's get through here. So now we've got both splitting different ways. And then for our delays, maybe we want to test our delays. So again, you can kind of make this however you want, only test certain things at a time, but we'll do 4 days here, but you get the idea. We're just going to go through and we're going to get as creative as we want to get here. And we could do things, create a new message from scratch. We could duplicate things. And again, we can clone our messages as we see fit, whatever we want to do here. So this is the way to create a test. And what this ultimately looks like is, let me pull up one of these here, that longer one. I'm getting a little too crazy on these things. Let's see, maybe this one. Oh, here's an example. So this is the one I was looking for. So in this case, I just stuck a bunch of stuff in here, right? And so I've got a start their checkout. So this will be cart abandonment. And I'm going to say my condition on the split. So I use that split tool here and set my condition to total price is more than $50. So if they're more than $50, I'm going to send them all the way down here. And I'm going to say, okay, you don't actually need a segment for. In this case, I'm going to do SMS, US and Canada SMS subscribers. And now I'm going to continue to split. And now if they are part of that group, I'm going to say, okay, I want to do 50-50. And in this case, this is that screenshot I showed you. I'm going to send the SMS first here, and then I'm going to do the exact same delays between everything else, where the other version gets the email first and the SMS last. We're going to see how the SMS converts and how it converts, not only compared to one another and delayed here, but how it converts overall, right? Do I get more conversions on my right path where the email is converting more up front versus the SMS converting more up front? If they're under $50, and now I'm doing something a little bit different here. So I'm testing under $50 and I'm testing timing here. So I know both audiences are spending less than $50 in their cart. I've got the identical emails, and now I've got one sending 11 hours later. The other one, I'm hitting them harder. I'm doing 1 hour later, and I'm just continuing down, right? So I've got a shorter time frame versus a longer time frame. And I've got all sorts of tests kind of built in here. So you kind of see, you can do very basic things and basic tests and very simple ones, or you can just keep on adding on and get a little fun with it and figuring out, hey, I've got these 4 different audiences. They're all coming to the same workflow, and I'm going to split these 4 audiences into 8 different versions and figure out which audience works best. And then I can start combining stuff and testing that combined later. But there's a lot of different options here for what you want to do from an automation standpoint. So I'd say just take some time, familiarize yourself if you haven't with the workflows and the automations and what you can do with it, and then figure out simple ways to do things to start, and then more complex things if you want to get more complex a little bit later in time as well. So that's kind of how I would work with the testing side. So I know we had some interruptions here, but again, when we talk about testing, test when you can, where you can, but be smart about it. So always have a goal in mind. What do we want to achieve and why do we want to achieve it? And then how are we going to use the results that we achieved to make our program stronger and better? So if you're just continually testing emojis in your subject lines versus non-emojis, and you get that, you're like, okay, emojis keep winning. What does that mean for your program? Or our conversions are going up every time we use a certain emoji, and we have statistical confidence in that. Or the color of our call to action button is different, but it converts better, right? So those are things to learn, and you start applying those to your program to make it better, where you can begin to test other things. So I'm a big proponent of automation testing. Use splits where you can, even if it's just a 50-50 split, and you change that timing a little bit. Let the automation, let the data collect in the background while you're focused on other aspects of growing your business or your day-to-day job functions. Understand what matters, right? Does the 0.2% lift in open rate matters? Well, it could, but are there bigger fish to fry that would have more impact on your conversions, like content testing or something, right? Or things like that. So think about what matters. That's ultimately comes down to your goals. But analyze, use your results, but also use some common sense here. And this is where the Gutalytics come in. It's not a perfect solution for every brand to have a 100,000 person list where the results are statistically significant. If you have a smaller list, maybe you only have 1,000 people on your list, right? Well, 500 people, or even if you do A/B winner send, to 200 people on each side, it's not statistically significant, but you're eyeballing that and going, hey, you know what? I'm getting a lot more sales over there than I am here. Use some common sense applied to that, and then just keep testing until you get enough of a confidence level to then do it. So use statistics, use those calculators where you can, but also use a little bit of common sense here. So, so that's what I would say from a testing side. Can be overwhelming, doesn't need to be overwhelming. Don't overthink things, but hopefully some of the slides here you can go back to with those testing ideas and say, okay, I like that one, don't like that one. We'll start here, and you kind of make your priority list. So that's the goal, is to give you a resource to go back to later. Check it out on YouTube, or when we send you the video, you can link over to it there. And again, we've got Omnisend to support you with Black Friday coming up next week. So use our live chat, use our live support. That's what we're here for, but also use some of the functions and tools available for you if you haven't yet. And then we can go through and hopefully get you to increase your revenue, increase your sales, and use the tools that we have created to make your jobs a little bit easier, including that subject line generator there. So I apologize for the technical difficulties today. That's how these things go sometimes. We just move on, but hopefully you got something there. Let me jump over. It's going to be quiet here for a second, but I'll jump over to the Q&A section, see what we have in here, if anything, and we'll see what we have. So, all right, not a question, but someone chimed in, Colton chimed in with an observation from a test. So he said, this goes back to, I think, my comments on, I had a client testing different percentages on their pop-up to see which one not only generated more signups, but ultimately more conversions here. And Colton said, I found on a form I've had on my own website for 25% off the first order, it's not gotten nearly as many signups as the one with a 10% order. But that being said, it's also gotten a higher conversion rate, which makes a lot of sense, right? Higher discount, people are generally going to your website and signing up because they're A, looking for a discount, or B, if they're not looking for a discount, but they'll always take a discount. They're on your website because they are looking to shop either now, later, with you, with someone else, but there's something taking them to that shop and making them interesting. So to me, I would consider it a very high intent action. So yeah, it would make sense that it might convert better, but the 10%, there's less, it's kind of, to me, there's less commitment to it. Yeah, I'll take 10% off because maybe I'm, gonna browse at some point, or maybe in this case, I know Black Friday is coming up and you can offer more than 10%. But again, what's the goal? Is it better to get more signups early, even if they're not converting, with a chance to convert them later? You're collecting more data on them. That might be more valuable than the immediate upfront sales, especially at the higher discounts. So always think about what the goal in mind there is to your not only short-term goals, but long-term goals. So Colton, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. I love it. Creates a good conversation and good talking point. Question, more product, but I'm gonna spell it out there. So can you create your own templates in Omnisend? Of course, we have they saw pre-built templates, but yes, you can create your own templates in Omnisend. You can even create different versions of them. You can even use one of our pre-built templates and save, if you like, shells of it, like the layout and things like that. But you want to have other areas where you can adjust those. You can save those as kind of content blocks, right? So if you create your own template, but you have these saved sections, you can just click a button, pull those sections into your own template or other templates as well. So completely customizable, really big options for it. So how do we do that? I'd say use our live support. I don't want to go through the product here for everyone else here, but it's pretty simple to do. There is a create your own template or build from scratch option on there as well if you're in the navigation. Of course, if you want to play around with it, Kyle, we do have obviously paid tiers for Omnisend. There is a free tier for Omnisend. So if you want to create an account for free and play around with some of the functionality, you can absolutely do that. And we don't limit that functionality. So if you want to play with the workflows, you want to play with the template builder to kind of get an idea, just create an Omnisend account, go in there and play around with it. No credit card required, so we don't ask for your credit card. So kind of no risk for you, but feel free to play around there. And of course, when you do that, use our live support. They'll be happy to walk you through how to actually do that as well. And of course, we have a really robust knowledge-based system. So shameless plug for Omnisend here, but Kyle, thanks for queuing me up there. But hopefully we have exactly what you need on there. I trust that we do. Okay, so this is a good one according to your from Mohammed. So thank you, Mohammed, for your time as well and for your question. According to your analysis, what type of copy and headers work best for abandoned carts? So I have not tested abandoned carts in a while, so this is going to be somewhat not outdated, but based on historical results, right? Don't always promise future results. However, I look at other brands who are currently doing things. I look at my own, how I respond to things and what I tell people to do. So copy, mostly sense of urgency, social proof, and value adds. Those are three things I would always stick for. So let me kind of walk through those quickly just to kind of put some definition to them. So sense of urgency, kind of like I showed before, it doesn't have to be in your face. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, sense of urgency. But if you expire shopping carts, it's an easy one. Hey, your cart's going to expire in 24 hours. A lot of brands don't expire carts. They'll leave them there kind of forever. So if you do that, it's a pretty simple one. If you offer a temporary discount for shopping cart abandonment, right? Use the sense of urgency. Hey, 10% off the next 24 hours only, things like that in there. Otherwise, I would combine it with social proof. The social proof of being like, hey, these items are going to sell out fast, or get them before they're gone, or have it in time for XYZ, right? So if Thanksgiving's coming up in the US, and it's that might be something where you adjust it 2 weeks before. They might be shopping to get it for Thanksgiving. Just an example there. But I would use the sense of urgency of like, hey, these are top selling products. They've been on stock before. They're going on stock again. Get them before they last. Terrible verbiage. Don't use that. But you get the sense of what I'm trying to put there. If they're abandoning a cart, I guarantee you, when they leave the cart and they leave, maybe they go to a different website, maybe they get back to work, maybe they're attending their kids, they are thinking about that product. Whether it's on your cart, someone else's cart, they're planning on doing some comparison shopping. They are thinking about that. This is your opportunity to kind of reinforce that sense of urgency and be like, yeah, buy it today, look good tomorrow, right? If you're selling clothing or jewelry or something. So that's what I mean by sense of urgency. Value adds, this is what I mean by value adds, right? Do you offer free shipping, expedited shipping, fast shipping, satisfaction guarantees, free returns, or extended return windows? All these things that might being, or if you're clothing, right? Do you have really good reviews on product size and fit or quality of products? Maybe you're not the cheapest kid on the block, but your quality, your products last longer. These are all things I would make standard in your browse abandonment, cart abandonment templates, is overcome any obstacle to conversion they might have. So, hey, this is a good price. I like it, but how are the returns if I don't like it or it doesn't fit right, if it's a product? These are things where, or hey, try us for 90 days versus 30 days, right? Small things like this, they might never return it. They might really not worry about the product fit as much as they think they do. But these are things where if you reinforce those company value adds across every message, they can overcome those obstacles. So those are things I would absolutely put in there. I find those tend to work better. And the third thing is, and this is a great test as well, social proof, right? So we already talked about social proof from like a sense of urgency side of top rated products or top products. That social proof is built in because people know they're shopping. The other thing you do is really focus on like having a texted customer testimonial that they left on the review page in that message as well. And that could be a testimonial on the specific product if you are sophisticated enough to put that in for specific products, or it could be on the company in general. Got this and it fit perfect and the customer service was amazing, right? Those are things that kind of reinforce those value adds, but it's coming from someone else's mouth. Right. Or if you want to put product recommendations in there, if you think they're not sure exactly, it's probably more browse abandonment, but not, you want to give them options to expand or increase their cart, right? Top rated products, and you have a couple on there and you show the 5 stars. So use that social proof where you can. But again, it could be as simple as showing 5-star ratings in the product itself, right? The abandoned product, or it could be customer testimonials about either the product or the company as well. So those are things that you find influence conversions more. And when they influence conversions more, those are things I would A/B test. So, if you have a standard one with no testimonials or no sense of urgency, plug one of them in there and see if it lifts the conversions. And if it does, then you can start playing around with adding more stuff in there. Or here's the beauty, right? We had those splits. You could do 50-50 splits, but then you can split off that split. So if you want to test 4 different versions, one standard, your baseline, one with a sense of urgency, one with a customer testimonial, and one with something else on there, right? Product recommendations, whatever it might be. You have that opportunity to do so, and you can just split 4 ways, right? So that's the beauty of using the automation to collect data in the background while you're focused on other things. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Mohammed. But again, always think about what's going to influence a purchase more than, say, just a subject line, right? Because the content, those obstacles to conversion are going to influence ultimate purchases more than other things. So, Mohammed, if you have more questions or it was too ambiguous for you, find me on social. I'll be happy to answer anything you have. And that really extends to anything else as well. So, all right, it looks like any other questions before we log off here, because I know we're over time, but we're recording it. I apologize for the hiccups before. It looks like we've got all the questions answered so far. So, all right, that being, okay, not a question. Thank you for the nice words. What a beautiful name. Terala, I hope I pronounced that right. Terala. So thank you, everyone. Again, we will send the recording via email. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked out Omnisend's YouTube channel, please do so. You got some fun educational podcasts on there for me as well, where we break down short topics in just a matter of minutes. We've got tons of other omni-channel and e-commerce tutorials and marketing tips on there as well. So please check that out. Please fill out the form, the form afterward. It'll take you 15 seconds, but we love seeing that feedback to make these as best possible. We will take your feedback and avoiding the technical glitches next time. So thank you, everyone. Happy Black Friday, Cyber Monday to you. Happy marketing, and we'll catch you next time. So thank you, everyone.